and welcome to the Cancer Journey podcast. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sherry Ann.
And we're going to start with our pest check-in to get grounded. So, Sherry Ann, do you want to start?
Yes, because I need this. All right, so physically 6.75, emotionally 7.2, spirit 8.5, hope 9.2, and my word is showing up.
Okay. Physically, I am a 7.5. Emotionally, I am an 8.75. Spiritually, I'm a 6.5, and hope is an 8.5, and my word is mumbling.
Okay, we have really interesting numbers and words today.
We're going to get into talking about emotional intelligence. It's something that I feel like is talked about a lot, but for ourselves, we just want to provide some clarity on how we define it and how we approach it to really bring it into our company and into the people who come and are part of our programs, our clients, our trainees, and how we really get to envelop people in the care that comes with that emotional intelligence.
Yes. And it's so much a part of what's in the zeitgeist right now with mental health. It's like mental health and emotions. You can't separate it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm really kind of keying in on these days, particularly now, is how much we don't know about emotions, how we kind of throw around the term emotional intelligence, and how we don't really know what it is, I think, because I've been reading a lot of different articles and hearing what people say, and it's all over the place. So what I'd like to do here with this podcast is kind of give you guys an overview of our interpretation of emotional intelligence, because I think we deal with and we teach emotional intelligence really well. It's something that we spend a lot of time in because, especially during a cancer journey, but all of life, because we're human beings, emotions are incredibly present and they can feel extra swirly. So if we don't create a relationship with our emotions, then it's like us holding our breath, meaning emotions come to us just like breathing. It's happening every moment of the day, and we're not really conscious of that. Like, unless I say, "Are you breathing?" Do we ever pause to say, "Yeah, I'm breathing"? It's kind of just a natural body function. The same with emotions. It's part of who we are. It's part of our bodies actually speaking to us. And so if we're not paying attention, okay, that's okay, because we don't pay attention to breathing all the time. But when something strong happens, it is, in my world and the CJI world, a messenger. So let's start with kind of an overview of what we classify as the three stages of emotional intelligence. And then I think in subsequent podcasts, we can really break it down into each of the particular stages. But let's start with just an overview. Cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's jump in.
So the first stage is emotional literacy, which is just understanding that there are emotions, what they are, and we use emotions and feelings interchangeably. Now, not everybody does. Some people say feelings are thoughts or emotions are thoughts, and then they turn into the actual feeling of it. We're using it interchangeably in what we're saying. So having an understanding that there are a lot of emotions there to feel. We have a map of emotions that CJI created, and it goes from constricting to transitional all the way to expansive. But just knowing that we don't classify it as good or bad or negative or positive, because like breathing, it's just a bodily function. It's what we feel.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that there are all of these emotions, the fact that we understand that hopelessness and despair and sadness and anger are all there to be felt, as well as joy and bliss. And
Mm-hmm.
that one's not more better than the other. They're just different energies.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if we take that even a step further, they come to tell us something. So if somebody stepped over a boundary, I might react and become agitated, angry, depending on how important that boundary was to me. Okay, that's a messenger. Something just happened. Pay attention. Or if I just receive some really good news and all of a sudden I'm elated, something just happened. Let's pause. So I really actually want people to know that the emotions have words and the words have energy. And it's important for us to pay attention. Not every
Mm-hmm.
moment. That would be really hard. It's like sitting there constantly noticing when I'm breathing in and breathing out. It's great for a period of time, but every moment of the day, I'd get nothing else done.
I think also part of emotional literacy is knowing that and accepting that emotions are a natural human occurrence, right? Like there are no positive and negative, it just is because we're human and we're capable of all of these emotions and they will come up for you. And you get to see them and know them, but I really see literacy as that knowing deeply, innately in your brain, even just in your
Yeah,
brain, that they exist, they're there. There are words that you can associate to them, but that they truly exist.
right. And there's more than what we're taught in grade school: mad, sad, glad, and I don't know what the other one is, but it's not just those. There's so much more. So the literacy is understanding that there is a lot of emotions and
Hmm.
and and honoring that. So then there's the second stage, which is emotional agility, and that's the ability to feel the different emotions. It's great to know the language and to have the words, but to actually be with the emotions, not telling the story about the emotions, because that's still the head. It is the feeling it in your body. It's like
Hmm.
knowing that it has an energy, that it has um, a resonance, and that it's actually kind of like, hey, pay attention.
Yeah, yeah. And I see the first stage very much as head, the second stage of agility being in the heart and what you're feeling. And it's more than just knowing what each feeling feels like. Oh, like, oh yeah, I know what it feels like to be sad. I know what it feels like to be happy. It's also being able to process in a moment how you're feeling and stopping and tuning into what that is. Because a story will come from your head. Will story to tell you how you're feeling or why you're feeling will come from your head. And I think that's literacy and being able to communicate that, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to be able to really know what you're feeling before you then start to tell the story around it is so much more important. And I think sometimes, especially when we're triggered, we go to why. Why are we triggered? Why? And we go really head when there's so much happening in your heart. That's what was triggered. Something internally, that emotion was triggered in you, and now something's coming up. Or a glimmer, which is the positive kind of trigger. So it's something that really elates you, whether it's good or bad, whatever that feeling is. It's really important to take note in that moment because maybe it's way more multifaceted than one good or bad. Maybe it's like there's some good, there's some bad. It's a really bittersweet moment, and there's a lot to play around with in there and understand. But if you don't have the agility to be able to process and know what layers are there, you can't really understand what that emotion is.
I mean, you're speaking to having a relationship with your emotions. And
Hmm.
that's so important. And when I say that, I'm sure a lot of people are going, what are you talking about? Having a relationship with my emotions. But there's so much a part of us. We talked about breathing and
Hmm.
how, just breathing is a natural part of who we are. Well, so is emotions. And so, not that I need to have a relationship with breathing, though, hey, that would be a good idea too. But really, it's important to have a relationship with your emotions because they can, as you were talking about trigger, they can take you and take
Mm-hmm.
you away from where you want to be. And so I tend to say if that happens, it's your body saying, something just happened. Let's pay attention here.
Yeah, and you need time with that emotion. It's not like, okay, now let's act on it. It's like, okay, let's notice what's here and then choose how you want to respond.
Right.
Yeah.
And by having a relationship with my emotions, I can say, wow, I'm mad. What,
Mhm.
what feels mad in me? Rather than, because sometimes it's like, am I mad? Am I agitated? Am I disappointed? Am I sad? I mean, I could easily mix those all up. It's just that I
Mhm.
know that something has got me. And
Mhm.
so I can try to push through, push it away, go, I need to get stuff done. So I'm not going to feel this because it's getting in the way. But it really is like somebody poking me on the shoulder going, wait, 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 wait. Don't step over this. Let's just take a
Yeah.
look at this.
Yeah, and if you don't look at it, it tends to influence everything you end up doing. So, like, if you're upset about an argument you had with a friend, and then you go to work the next day, and you try to ignore everything that happened, but you know it's still playing that like comeback you wanted to say, or the new argument you have that you want to come back and say. It's like that's all still in there, and it will start to manifest in what you do because you don't process it, or if you don't process it.
Right, right. And processing can sometimes be as simple as feeling it. Like,
Hmm.
okay, let me take a pause. I just stubbed my toe and I'm pissed.
Hmm.
Okay, slow down. What's really going on? Oh, this, and this. Okay. Now I know that that feels like head, but it is just the body saying pause, and it's not always painful or angry. It's not always those emotions. You mentioned glimmers. It can be like, whoa, the sun is out. And somebody just gave me some really good news. Let's not step over that. Let's feel that because that feels good. I
Hmm.
mean, it
Yeah.
literally feels like sunshine on our bodies, like we're plants and we're like, oh yay, that just added something to me.
Right. And I think that goes so well with celebrating. People find it
Hmm.
so hard to celebrate themselves, or like taking a compliment. I know that's a really, really hard one, and I think that I have had so many friends for like many years who are like, "Oh God, I can't take a compliment." And I myself, it's like sometimes it's hard. It's like when someone compliments you, you want to say something that almost deflects, or you're like, "Oh no, I didn't even, no, don't look at me." But it's like, no, like receive, and let yourself have the emotion, and just say thank you.
Exactly. I mean, when you said that, what just came up is someone will compliment something that I'm wearing, and I'll go, "Oh, I got it on sale," as for some reason that deflection versus like, "Thank you, I like it too," and then feel that
Mm-hmm.
joy,
Yeah.
feel that recognition, feel that little bit of, again, I'm going to say sunshine because it does feel like something that kind of lights you up. So it's like, oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Especially if you're like making that choice. And it's like, we don't need to downgrade who we are and what we've accomplished just for whatever reason. But it's even that in that discomfort that we get to learn to celebrate ourselves, right? Like it might be a little uncomfortable to say thank you and just receive that. But at the end of the day, you deserve that positivity, that warmth, that sunshine.
Right. And what you're saying is really quite amazing when it's agility and really letting ourselves feel whatever is showing up in this moment. We actually, I believe, have a harder time or as hard a time feeling the really expansive, joyous, big emotions versus um, the constricting and really
Mhm. Tight.
like tight ones, like pessimism or jealousy and envy. It's like, oh no. I mean, and so we end up what? Not feeling?
Try to find neutral and nothingness because why?
Exactly. where if emotions are telling us things are happening in our lives and we get to have it all,
Hmm.
the expansive and the constricting, and knowing that just by feeling them sometimes we shift. And
Right,
sometimes it takes longer and we
right,
need to process more, but we do that in the work that we do.
right. And I do think that a reason people shy away from it is because they're scared. They're scared of how they have reacted in the past, and the fact that, in general, culturally, we're just not um like brought up to really embrace emotions in the same way, so we start to neglect, and so once we have our literacy and our agility, we get to the third stage, which is emotional responsibility and impact, which I think a lot of responsibility is unlearning some of that cultural norm of pushing away, because pushing it away has historically caused us to be more reactive to the really high highs and the really low lows, like high highs being like domineering and turning into a dictator, and seeing how that negatively influences everything they do if they're on their high highs on search for power. And then the low lows, there's like that depression, that anger that can also spur such crazy negatively impactful actions. And within responsibility, if you're able to have that agility and literacy, you get to make the choice, right? And you get to be with your emotions more, and know that those high highs do not have to turn into dictatorships, and those low lows do not have to sink you down into a pit of nothingness, or, affect everything around you. You get to start to make that choice, because you're like, I know what it feels like, and because I'm feeling it, I get to make the active choice of what I want its impact to be, instead of suppressing it and let it manifest in everything else I do negatively, because that's what we know.
Right, right. And I do think that that's a big part of what people call emotional intelligence out there, is the
Mhm.
impact and the responsibility. But you can't get there yet until you get the literacy and the agility. It's like you
Mhm.
need to know the language and you need to be able to speak the language before you can do anything with the language.
Right, right. It's so much more than just looking out there externally and being like, "Oh, I recognize that emotion. I recognize that emotion." Like pointing fingers doesn't do anything unless you turn your fingers inward and you look at yourself and you're like, "What is this emotion for me, and what am I choosing to do with it?" Because it can impact everyone around me, and I want to make that choice. But if we're out there saying, "This person's mad, they're gonna do this," that's just judgment, and it comes with a lot less compassion to be judgmental of what assumed emotion you think that they're catering to, um, and then you can't help them. And I
Right,
think emotional intelligence actually is like very much something that you understand internally, so that when other people are reacting or in an emotional state, you're not judging, you're just holding it for them. You're like, I feel ya. I know exactly what that feels like in my body. And yeah, you get to be there. You get to be frustrated. Tell me more about it.
right, right. And being with it than being a victim of it. And I
Hmm.
use victim as a purposefully because sometimes when people are not aware of their emotions and they're triggered, and I tend to say triggered because that's when people kind of just let go of all responsibility. It's like, wait a minute, you did. And then all of a sudden that impact is thrown on you. Or they're like, oh, I'm not mad. And they walk into a room and you could feel that vibe. And everybody in the room kind of goes, what just happened? And that impact is almost like stealth denial. And
Yes.
that's painful too.
Yes, and I think I almost want impact to be its own category, but I responsibility and impact go together. But impact can be so strong because even if you know it's here for you, you know it's internalized. Like a lot of times I've experienced people who have said like, "Yeah, I get it," and like I know that like when I'm mad, it can impact a room, but that's just where I'm at. And that's like, people have to just deal with it. And you're like, okay, I'm glad that you're aware of your impact. I'm glad that you know that you can influence the energy in a room one way or another. But you're not being responsible for that impact, and you're not being responsible for how other people are taking it, because every exchange is going to be interpersonal. Everyone's going to be affected by the energy you bring. And a great way to be aware of this and to share it is to communicate with the people in that room and be like,
Yeah.
I'm having an impact right now. This is where I'm at. It is no reflection on you guys, and I'm really trying to hold on to that. But I know that right now, my emotional space may be affecting your emotional space, and it is
Yeah.
not a reaction to it. I just need to like be here in this anger, and like, please let me know if there's something else I can do to remove it. But I don't want to take it out on anyone else, and that's
Right.
not my intention at all. So,
Yeah.
which is a lot of communicating for some people.
Yes, an incredible responsibility. And I want to say that we're human.
Mhm.
And humans don't do it perfectly. We're not set up to do anything perfectly. We do it the way that we are. We're just saying there's more awareness. And the training that we provide around emotional intelligence allows us to be more agile, more literate, and more responsible, more conscious.
Mhm.
So I know we can keep on going, but I think was a great place for us to pause and kind of invite you to come back for more on emotional intelligence when we really break it down stage by stage and how to be with them.
Yes, absolutely. Just right before we wrap up, I wanted to say that I love that you compared emotions to breathing, because so many practices say to stop and breathe. If you're having a panic or anxiety attack, if um you're just overwhelmed, it's like close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and that tuning in the same way that you tune in with your breath to help calm you is exactly how tuning into your emotions is as well. And I love that comparison.
Yeah. Human bodily functions.
Mhm.
Bring them on. Here we are, being human.
Yeah. So takeaway and a word, Sharian. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Yeah. I want you to start.
Okay. My takeaway is that when you are able to tune in more to your own emotions and be able to process and hopefully communicate them with the people around you, um, you inspire compassion in yourself and everyone else around you, because um, we're not all going to do everything the same way, but we can understand where we're coming from and hold space for that. And my word is expansive.
All right. What's my takeaway? First off, I just wanted to say again, we're just human. And I don't mean just. It's just to kind of say we're all here trying to live our lives. But when there's something like emotions here to support us, it's like lean in. They're not here to hurt us. They're here to be with us. And so I really want everyone to think about having a relationship with your emotions. And my word then is permission. Permission to
Hmm.
have a relationship.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. We post new episodes every Friday, so we'll see you next week.
Have a lovely rest of your day.